Over 25 million people lived under Ottoman rule at its peak. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Turks, Arabs, Greeks, Armenians, dozens of languages, hundreds of cultures, all governed by a system that shouldn't have worked, but ran smoothly for over 600 years. The Ottomans didn't have democracy, they didn't have elections, they didn't have freedom of speech or human rights as we understand them today, and yet they built one of the longest-lasting empires in history. This is the story of how the Ottomans governed millions without democracy, and trust me, their system was more sophisticated than most people realize. It's 1453. Constantinople just fell. Sultan Mehmed II, only 21 years old, stands in the ruins of the Byzantine Empire. He's looking at a city that's been Christian for over 1,000 years, a city filled with Greeks, Armenians, Jews, and other religious groups. Most conquerors would force everyone to convert or leave. Mehmed does something completely different. He calls the Greek Orthodox Patriarch and makes him an offer. You keep your religion. You keep your churches. You govern your own people. You follow your own laws. In exchange, you recognize Ottoman authority and pay taxes. The Patriarch agrees, and just like that, Mehmed creates a system that will define how the Ottomans govern for the next 400 years. This is the Millet system, and it's genius. Here's how it works. The Ottoman Empire doesn't try to make everyone the same. Instead, they divide society into religious communities called millets. Each millet governs itself. Muslims have their courts and laws based on Islamic law. Christians have their courts and laws based on Christian traditions. Jews have theirs based on Jewish law. Each community elects or appoints its own leaders. Each community runs its own schools, hospitals, and charitable institutions. The Ottoman government doesn't interfere in internal millet affairs. If two Greeks have a dispute, a Greek court handles it. If two Jews have a disagreement, a Jewish court decides. The Ottomans only get involved when disputes cross religious lines or involve major criminal matters. Think about what this means. The Ottoman Empire is governing millions of people from dozens of ethnic and religious backgrounds without trying to create one unified culture. They're not forcing everyone to speak Turkish. They're not forcing everyone to convert to Islam. They're managing diversity by institutionalizing it. But here's the thing nobody talks about. This system works because the Ottomans understand something fundamental about power. Control doesn't mean uniformity. You don't need everyone to be the same. You just need everyone to know their place in the system. And the Millet system does exactly that. Everyone has a clear position. Everyone has a community. Everyone has leaders who represent them to the central government. And because people have autonomy over their daily lives, religion, culture, and family matters, they don't constantly rebel against Ottoman rule. Now let me show you how the Ottomans actually run the empire on a practical level. Because the Millet system handles religious communities, but what about government? What about the army? What about collecting taxes and enforcing laws? That's where the Ottoman administrative structure comes in, and this is where it gets really interesting. The Ottoman Empire is divided into provinces called eyalets, later called vilayets. Each province has a governor, a pasha or beylerbey, who represents the sultan's authority. These powers are powerful. They command local military forces, they collect taxes, they enforce laws. They're basically regional rulers. But here's the genius part. The Ottomans rotate these governors constantly. You're governor of Syria for 3 years, then you're moved to Egypt, then Anatolia, then the Balkans. You never stay in one place long enough to build an independent power base. You never develop enough local connections to rebel against the Sultan. This rotation system prevents governors from becoming too strong, while still giving them enough authority to actually govern effectively. And here's another layer. The governors don't own their positions. They're appointed by the Sultan and can be removed at any moment. Their wealth, their power, everything depends on staying loyal to the central government.
If you're a governor and you think about rebelling, you know that the Sultan can replace you tomorrow and send someone to execute you the day after.
But the Ottoman system goes even deeper than this. Let's talk about the Devshirme system, because this is where the Ottomans do something that sounds absolutely insane but works brilliantly. The Ottomans go into Christian territories in the Balkans. They take boys, usually between ages 8 and 18. This is the Devshirme, the child levy. These boys are brought to Constantinople, converted to Islam, and given the best education in the empire. They learn Turkish, Persian, Arabic. They study mathematics, poetry, military strategy, administration, Islamic law. They train as soldiers and bureaucrats. The smartest ones become government administrators, provincial governors, even grand viziers, the second most powerful person in the empire. The strongest ones become Janissaries, the elite infantry corps that terrifies European armies for centuries. And here's the key point. These men have no family connections to Ottoman elites, no tribal loyalties, no inherited wealth. They owe everything to the Sultan who took them, educated them, and promoted them. Their loyalty is absolute, because without the Sultan's support, they have nothing. This creates a government class that's incredibly capable, but completely dependent on the Sultan. You can't bribe them through family connections because they don't have Ottoman families. You can't manipulate them through clan politics because they belong to no clan. The Devshirme system creates administrators and soldiers who serve the state, not their own interests. Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds horrific. Taking children from their families, converting them by force? Yes, it's brutal. But here's what we need to understand about Ottoman governance. The Ottomans aren't trying to be nice, they're trying to be effective. And by the standards of the time, the Devshirme system is remarkably meritocratic. A Christian peasant boy from Albania can become Grand Vizier, ruling the entire empire. That's impossible in most European countries, where you need noble blood to hold high office. The Devshirme system is horrifying and progressive at the same time. It destroys families but creates social mobility. It's forced conversion, but it opens doors that would otherwise stay closed forever. The Ottoman system works because it combines centralization with flexibility. At the top, the Sultan has absolute authority. His word is law. But in practice, the Sultan delegates power extensively. The Divan, the Imperial Council, makes most policy decisions. Provincial governors handle local administration. Religious leaders manage their own communities through the Millet system. It's a pyramid of power where everyone has a defined role and everyone knows who they report to. The Sultan doesn't micromanage. He sets policy direction and appoints key officials, but the actual work of governing millions of people is distributed across layers of administrators, governors, judges, and religious leaders. Let's talk about taxes, because empires don't run on good intentions, they run on money. And the Ottoman tax system is sophisticated. Muslims pay zakat, a religious tax that goes to charitable causes and the state. Non-Muslims pay jizya, a tax specifically for Christians and Jews in exchange for protection and exemption from military service. Is this fair? By modern standards, absolutely not. But by the standards of the 1400s and 1500s, it's relatively tolerant. Christians and Jews can practice their religion openly, something that's often impossible in Christian Europe, where Jews are expelled and heretics are burned. The Ottomans also used tax farming, a system where private individuals bid for the right to collect taxes in specific regions. The highest bidder wins. They keep anything they collect above their bid amount. This creates powerful local elites, but it also makes tax collection efficient without requiring a massive government bureaucracy. Provincial governors collect land taxes, merchants pay customs duties, trade routes generate tolls.
The empire runs on a complex web of taxation that funds the military, the bureaucracy, infrastructure projects, and the Sultan's court.
Now here's what makes the Ottoman system truly remarkable. They govern millions of people across 3 continents, dozens of cultures in multiple languages, all without modern communication technology. No phones, no internet, no railroads for most of their history. How did they do it? Standardized administrative practices. Every province follows the same basic structure, the same types of courts, the same tax categories, the same military organization. An official in Damascus can transfer to Sofia and understand the system immediately because the framework is identical. Written records. The Ottomans are obsessive about documentation. Every tax payment is recorded, every court decision is written down, every provincial report is sent to Constantinople. This creates accountability and allows the central government to monitor what's happening in distant provinces. Infrastructure. The Ottomans maintain roads, bridges in caravanserais, rest stops for travelers and merchants. This allows communication, trade, and military movement across the empire. Provincial governors can send messages to Constantinople. The central government can send orders to the provinces. The system stays connected. Legal systems. Islamic law, Sharia, provides a common legal framework for Muslims across the empire. The Qanun, secular law issued by the Sultan, handles administrative and criminal matters. These 2 legal systems coexist. Religious courts handle personal matters like marriage and inheritance. State courts handle taxation, land disputes, and criminal cases. Suleiman the Magnificent, who rules from 1520 to 1566, is called Suleiman the Lawgiver in Turkey because he systematizes and codifies Ottoman law. He creates a comprehensive legal code that governs everything from land ownership to taxation to criminal punishment. This standardization makes the empire more predictable and easier to govern. But the Ottoman system has cracks, and these cracks eventually destroy the empire. The Devshirme system gets corrupted. Powerful families start bribing their way into the system. The meritocracy becomes an aristocracy. The Janissaries, once elite soldiers, become a political force. They start overthrowing sultans they don't like. They resist military reforms because modernization threatens their privileges. The force that once made the empire strong becomes the force that keeps it weak. Provincial governors become too powerful. When the rotation system breaks down, governors stay in place for decades. They build local power bases. They start acting like independent rulers. The central government loses control over distant provinces. The Millet system creates divisions that nationalism later exploits. When Greek nationalism rises in the 1800s, the Greeks already have their own institutions, their own leaders, their own identity. They're not fully integrated into Ottoman society, they're a separate community, and that makes it easier to break away and demand independence. The same thing happens with Armenians, Arabs, and Bulgarians. The diversity that the Ottomans managed through the Millet system becomes the weakness that tears the empire apart. But here's what we need to understand. For over 400 years, the Ottoman system works incredibly well. It governs millions of people from dozens of backgrounds without democracy, without elections, without modern human rights. It does this through a combination of religious tolerance, administrative sophistication, military strength, and legal standardization. The Ottomans prove that you don't need democracy to govern effectively. You need a system that people can understand and navigate. You need clear hierarchies. You need delegated authority. You need flexibility within a strong framework. And you need the willingness to use force when necessary, but also the wisdom to grant autonomy when possible. Is this system morally good? By modern standards, absolutely not. The Devshirme system is child abduction. The Janissaries enforce authoritarian rule. Religious minorities are second-class citizens.
Women have extremely limited rights. None of this is acceptable today. But was it effective? Undeniably. For over 600 years, the Ottomans governed one of the largest empires in human history without democracy. They manage incredible diversity without modern technology. They create stability across continents and cultures. The Ottoman system eventually fails, not because authoritarian governance is impossible, but because the world changes. Nationalism makes the Millet system unworkable. Industrialization makes the tax farming system obsolete. Modern military technology makes the Janissaries irrelevant. The Ottoman system was designed for the medieval world. When the modern world arrives, the system can't adapt fast enough. But for centuries, the Ottomans showed that democracy is not the only way to govern effectively. There are other systems, other structures, other ways of organizing society and power. The Ottoman model was one of them. It was sophisticated, it was cruel, it was tolerant, it was oppressive, often all at the same time. That's how the Ottomans governed millions without democracy, not through elections and freedom, but through hierarchy, delegation, religious autonomy, military strength, and administrative competence. A system that modern democracy advocates would reject, but a system that undeniably worked for longer than most democratic governments have existed. If you want to understand why this empire eventually had to die for modern Turkey to be born, that video is already waiting for you. Click to watch now. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to keep watching Media Point.